All right, one pretty crucial thing that I left out on accident is this whole moving the shapes up idea. You can also do with your minor chords, which kind of have to know that, right? I mean, it's kind of no point knowing where all the major chords are: C shape, A shape, G shape, E shape. If you can't play minor chords too, right? I'll also go over 7 chords a little bit. But all of your open minor chords, you can slide up just the same way you can with these other shapes, right? So let's go and let's do the E shape, right? Actually, we'll stick to G. I think that might be a little bit easier. We'll go from E to G. How about that? I'm trying to figure out how to explain this really well, but that's our open E major chord. Well, sliding that up and barring is what gives us that E-shaped G chord, right? Well, where is the E minor? We know the E minor is the same. You just have to lift off and play this open G, and you have a minor chord, right? Well, the same thing applies to our G chord because it's the exact same shape. It's the exact same chord, just slid up. So if you take this finger off, and your bar would now be playing this. Your bar with your first finger would be playing this note. And now all of a sudden you have a G minor. Right? So that concept applies to all these positions. If we go, right, that's our A major. If we're playing A minor, finger like this, slide it up, bar, now we're playing a C minor. Same thing, right? A-shaped C major chord would be right here. A-shaped C minor chord would be right here. Right? So that's kind of the basic idea. And of course your E-shape and your A-shape bar chords are probably the two most common. So there you have it there. So I will point out, this also works really good with the D shape. If you take your D chord, right? D major, we know this is the D minor. Well, if you finger it like this is a little awkward to play down here. Let's slide this up. And because our root note's here, now we have an E minor. It's a D-shaped E minor chord. This would be E major. And that would be E minor, right? Because remember, the major and the minor are only one note different. Now, this gets a little in the weeds when you go to play either the C shape or the G shape, because it doesn't really work very well if you want to play the entire chord, right? Because how do you play C minor in no position? It's not really, you can do it, but that is very awkward to play, and I don't think I would ever play it that way. I'd probably just play this A shape, same chord. But once you can still slide this up, and it's still usable in another way, which might not mean a whole lot to you now, but it could in the future. So if we slide this up, slide it up even further so it's easier to play, this would be an E minor now, because our root note is on the note E. This would be our just regular C-shaped E major. But if we move this one note down, now this is a C-shaped E minor chord. This can come in handy because I'm going to try not to get in the weeds here, but if you just delete the root note and you play these 3 strings of that chord, that's an E minor triad. It has all the notes in the chord. It's got the G, B, and the E. The G would be your third, the B would be your fifth, and the E would be your root note. So technically I think this would be a first inversion E minor triad. That is useful. Because I mean, especially in the key of E, because you have an open E string. So the big thing about that C minor shape weird thing is you do get a triad out of it. Take note of that. Wouldn't be super concerned about it. If you need to play a minor chord, it's probably better just to pick either the E shape, the A shape, or the D shape, right? Quite frankly, those are just easier, way more common. G shape, same thing. You have to move this B note down here. Which I think I've played stuff like that, you know, when you're going for kind of a more weird kind of inversions of chords and fingerings and stuff. That can be kind of useful, but it's not very common. I don't really play it that much. I don't think a whole lot of people do. The notes I'm playing are 3, 1, 0, 0, 3, X. That's a G minor. So you can slide this up too. Really hard to play, kind of awkward. So that would be 5, 3, 2, 2, 5. So that would be, because our root note is right here on the A, that would be an A minor chord, a G-shaped A minor. Now, if I were to play out of this shape, I would probably play parts of it. Leaving out the root note makes it a lot easier to play. That way you just have the minor third on top. Right? Once again, not super common, but just know that shape is there. That's about it for minor chords. 7 chords, you can do the same thing, right? That's our E7, which is lifting off that finger. Same thing here. Just think about, okay, if it's an E-shaped chord and I'm trying to play a 7 chord, what am I changing, right? And just do the same thing to your E-shaped bar chord, and it will serve the same function. Now we've created a G7. Once again, probably the other most common bar chord is the A shape. We know that to be A7 with that open G string in the middle, right? So we can slide this up bar. Now instead of playing this note on the G string, our bar is playing this 3rd fret note. And now we have C7 because our root note's on the note C. Same thing applies to the other positions. Once again, I think the D shape's pretty useful, and the C shape. 7 chords, really all the shapes are not terrible. D shape. That would be your 7 chord. So it just comes from D7, right? That would be our regular D major. This is D7. Slide that shape up, find our root note. Now we've created F7. Same thing with the C shape. The C shape one is pretty big. This chord gets used a lot. So if you take your C chord and you put your pinky on the 3rd fret of the G string and just play the middle 4 strings, that's a C7, right? And because you're playing these middle 4 strings all with one of your fingers, there's no open strings, you can slide this shape all over the place. It's like this would be D7, for example, because our root note is D. G chord, I think this one's kind of funky, but also still the shape is important, I think. That would be how you play G7. You can slide this up and do the thing. Once again, I would probably never play it like this, but it's good to be aware that that chord is in fact there. The theory of it is always the same. Like whatever you do to these shapes down here, the C, the A, the G, the E, the D, you know, caged, every letter in there, whatever you can do to the chord down here, it applies to all your shapes further up the neck. It's all the same. It's all the same thing. As long as you're sure that the note that you're changing to whatever note is the same, you know, going up the neck, meaning like to get to A minor, if you go from A major to A minor, just make sure that you're moving the same note up here, and it will be the same, functionally the same thing, just in a different, you know, key center, different root note, different chord name, you know. Same position, still the A shape, but now it's a D minor because we slid up here, right? So that relationship is the same. It just depends on how high or low of a pitch of the chord that you're playing, if that makes any sense. So that'll kind of get you moving on like playing minor chords and 7 chords all around the place, right? I'll just play some random examples of minors and 7s. As you can see, you can take the minor and the 7 idea, and if you have a minor or a 7 in your chord progression, you can incorporate that into the CAGED system just the same way that you incorporate that into your open chords. And you can take all those ideas, apply them to the different, you know, CAGED shapes, and bam, there you are. You can play 7s and minors all over the guitar neck.